You mentioned something really interesting about the SAB121. If people don't understand what that is, teach them. And what are the ramifications for us who have been accumulating Bitcoin?
Yes. So SAB121, if you've heard of Custodia Bank, headed up by Caitlin Long, basically she has been trying to create a Bitcoin custody bank for the better part of the last decade, if I'm not mistaken. She's been basically blocked at every single turn. We're not going to charter you. We're not going to charter you. She's in the best state in the union for this. She's in Wyoming. She's proven that she can do this. She has all of the legal framework, all of the paperwork. Because of SAB 121, she just isn't able to do this. And other banks that want to do this as well, they can't. Basically, in a nutshell, it's this totally arbitrary regulatory or regulation rather, that basically disallows banks from custodying Bitcoin. It's a whole bunch of red tape. It forces them to classify Bitcoin held on their balance sheet as a liability rather than an asset, among a host of other things, which is so silly. And so basically it makes banking on a Bitcoin standard totally impossible. Repealing SAB 121 is massive because what it will be able to do is it will remove all that red tape. It'll allow these banks to classify their Bitcoin as an asset. And therefore, it'll allow them to basically custody Bitcoin if they'd like to do it, which means not only can you, for example, go to your bank in the United States and buy Bitcoin, like actual spot Bitcoin directly at your bank, and then your bank can hold it on your behalf. But the bank will also be able to go and create a bunch of new financial instruments, Bitcoin-backed loans, Bitcoin-backed mortgages, other things like that. And what it will do is it will more deeply integrate Bitcoin into the traditional financial system. So what I just talked about a moment ago, Bitcoin collateralized lending, that's now coming to pass with Trump really, really heavily rumored to be getting rid of SAB 121. And it's something that he can do. Congress passed a law to remove SAB 121, to repeal it. Joe Biden vetoed it, right? So very hostile act toward the Bitcoin industry. But it shows that once Trump is in office, this law can go through Congress again. Chances are it'll get passed. And once it reaches Trump's desk, because he's very pro-Bitcoin, he'll sign it into law. So the implications of this are staggering, right? It means every single U.S. bank, from J.P. Morgan, the biggest
staggering
one,
is a
all
good
the way
word.
down.
Like,
Yeah. They will be able to custody Bitcoin on behalf of their clients. So it'll be just as easy as going into your bank and buying a share of a money market fund or a CD, a certificate of deposit. You'll probably be able to go into your bank over the next 4 years, right? If this does come to fruition, which it probably will, and get a Bitcoin collateralized loan or a Bitcoin collateralized mortgage, or buy Bitcoin and have them custody it on your behalf. So it's basically repealing SAB 121 will bridge Bitcoin and traditional finance in a way that we've really never seen before. It basically it breaks down the floodgates, the final floodgate between Bitcoin and TradFi, which is the banks being able to hold Bitcoin.
Interesting. And of course, this is a pretty key area of the thesis for anyone that's been accumulating Bitcoin before now, which is like at some stage, this thing's going to be owned by big banks. At some stage, nation states are going to own this thing. At some stage, it's going to be the base layer of money globally. And then you start looking at user adoption rates. They're very, very high in terms of speed, like new users, very interesting, faster than the internet, things like that, but still pretty small. I reckon we're still at that stage. Like you ask 100 people about Bitcoin, over 90 will tell you they've heard of it. But you say to them how many own it in self-custody in a meaningful way, and I think you'd be very lucky to get even a few hands. And so the penetration of this thing in a meaningful sense actually hasn't begun yet. And that's, like, as investors, absolutely fascinating.